of Jail's Head, Book 1, Bloodkin, by Kathy Ashford. More. And here we are at part 3. The following takes place in the year 595 after the leaving. Chapter 21. Not long after midnight, the party began to wind down. We gathered up the hall crew and made for the exit, where the Queen and Mer Sebastian were positioned together to thank and farewell their guests. Ah, Lord Joseph, a happy new year to you. I ignored Talga's jabbing elbow as the Queen spoke to me. Thank you, Your Majesty. Happy New Year to you too. I hope it's, peaceful and, prosperous. Yep, not my best work, but Talga was distracting me ever so slightly. The Queen gave me an enigmatic smile. I'm sure it will be. Good night. What? She knows your name? Talga demanded as I hurried outside. Yeah, we hung out. Bollocks! You hung out with the Queen? I don't believe it. I told you you wouldn't. So, what's she like then? I laughed and told him about my conversation with Thaalik as we hurried home through streets thronged with revellers celebrating the new year under the light of the cold winter moon. Soon, the others returned from their holidays and we resumed the business of the academy. Talgith took great delight in telling them of our invitation to the royal banquet, especially the part about my date with the Queen. Predictably, Sella was furious at having been excluded. So, you mean that if I had stayed here, I could have gone? She demanded. My bloody parents went, and they said I wasn't allowed to. She was quiet on the subject of Thaalik, though, and I couldn't work out whether I should be worried by this or not. I truthfully didn't know how I felt about Sella anymore. Frankly, I hadn't exactly missed her in the week and a half she had been staying with her parents, and since meeting the Queen, well, she had kind of occupied my thoughts in the way that Sella used to, only much, much more intensely. I considered breaking up with Sella, but she thought she loved me, and I really didn't think I had the balls to break her heart. Anyway, it wasn't like anything had happened with Thaalik, and I knew that I was kidding myself if I thought anything else was going to. Besides, Sella gave good cuddles, and she really was an excellent kisser, so I couldn't really complain. Winter muddled along drearily. When it wasn't raining or sleeting or snowing, there were a few rare stretches of bright, bitter sunshine, but more often a chilly fog would roll off the lake, obscuring the view from my second-story window, clinging to our robes and hair whenever we went outside. Anna had obviously considered Lalitha's rather offhand remark after she had saved us that last Samhain, and after Odette's death had prompted her to action, because one Saturday morning in late January, Charlie woke me early. Ugh, go away, Charlie. It's early, I grumbled, and tried to hide under my blankets. Not only was it early, but it was also seriously cold. Get up! You have to do your meditation. Anna's invited you lot for some, special tutoring. Oh, really? More lessons. Good. Just what I always wanted. Despite my protestations, Charlie had his way, and an hour later I was dressed and ready to go. We met Lalitha and Talgith in the common room with their mentors, and together we left the hall to go and see what Anna had in mind for our extra tutoring. I thought maybe Charlie would take us to Anna's house, but when we passed the shivering thistle, Charlie nodded to the doorman and led us inside. O'Malley was, as usual, perched behind the bar, reading the big weekend edition of the paper and directing one of the journeymen, who was up a ladder, feeding the globes that hung from the ceiling. Bit early for it, eh, kids? But his eyes twinkled. Go on up, she's expecting you. Upstairs in the private lounge, Anna was tending to the fires, while stretched out on a couch, yawning loudly, was Lux. Anna turned and greeted us as we walked through the archway. Ah, good. Is this everyone for now? Charlie nodded. Excellent. We'll start with a small group. It's been a while since I've done any teaching, so please, bear with me. She chuckled self-deprecatingly and motioned for us to sit. Reluctantly, Lux sat up and glared at us all as if we were the reason she was awake at this ungodly hour. Now, in the light of certain recent events, I think it would be prudent for you, Bloodkin, to learn a few, shall we say, defensive measures you can take if you find yourselves in danger of any kind. Lux snorted and rolled her eyes, but was silenced by a cold look from her aunt. Our friend Lalitha here asked me once if I could teach her about visibility cloaking. Lalitha just shrugged as Talgoth gave her a questioning look. So, today we will begin with that. Now, I understand that you have worked on, reflecting Shiel at the Academy? Anna looked around and we nodded. Good. Well, an invisibility cloak works on the same principle. Anna spent the morning explaining to us how we could construct the shields. The quality of the air around us had to be changed, not to reflect light, but to refract it in a particular way. This meant that anyone looking at the shield would see what was behind it, as if they were looking straight through, whereas actually they were looking at the light that had been bent and angled off the shield. O'Malley had come up with a pitcher of coffee and a plate of pastries around mid-morning, and after our break, Anna had us practice this new technique. It was infinitely harder than it sounded. We started with holding our left hands over our laps and constructing the light shield around it with Hjarvan. It was easy enough to make my hand go black, as my first shield absorbed all the light and reflected none. Then I got the opposite to happen, as the shield reflected all the light back. My hand became like a little mirror. The trick was getting the air to refract the light, so the light bouncing off my lap would hit the shield, angle around it, and then bounce off again. Tricky stuff. I wasn't having much luck when Lalitha yelped, "Oh, it's gone!" I looked over, breaking my concentration. Lalitha was sitting with her hand extended, but fully visible from where I sat. "It's still there, Letha," Talgoth told her a bit crossly. It seemed he was having as tough a time as I was. "Not from here, it's not. Come look." We got up and went and stood behind her, looking down over her shoulder, and sure enough, where her hand should be was nothing. We could see straight through to her green pinstripe robe, although if I looked really closely, I could see a light hand-shaped break in the pattern. "Very good, Lalitha. Can you others explore her shield with your Hjarvan to see how she's done it?" "Good." I concentrated on where Lalitha's hand should be and saw immediately what she had done to make the light bend so. Lux ignored us, concentrating on her own hand. I suppose she had been using her Hjarvan for a good few years down in the Enclave, and it was clear she had little time for Bloodkin with barely 6 months' experience. I sat down and got my hand to vanish straight away, which was actually pretty creepy. I mean, I knew it was still there, and I knew it was only a trick of the light, but still, seeing the sleeve of my robe open onto nothing was a pretty weird sight. I suppose Anna could have created a shield herself and let us view it from the beginning, but this was how Hjarvan lessons went at the Academy as well. We had to muddle through and try and work it out for ourselves first. Now, as you have seen, this only works when you are being viewed from a particular angle. Next, you will practice constructing these shields so you will be invisible from every angle. But for now, I think, you have earned yourself a break. For some fresh air and lunch, we went around the corner to a cafe. I felt a concentration headache building, such as I hadn't felt since my first couple of weeks at the Academy. So Charlie passed around a pipe of white, and we ordered sandwiches and hot drinks. It was one of the rare, clear days of the winter. We sat outside, trying to enjoy the feeble warmth of the sun. Lux was still in a prickly mood, made worse by the fact that Talgoth seemed to be highly amused by her attempts to pick fights with him. Ever since they had met, Lux had viewed him as fair game, and she tried her best to wrangle him. She largely ignored me, for which I was grateful, and she watched Lalitha from beneath her lashes with a vaguely feral interest that Lalitha tried her best to ignore. After lunch, we went back to the Thistle for a couple more hours' practice before Anna was satisfied and dismissed us. Every Saturday, I want to see you here, early. There are a number of things I want you to learn, all for your own safety. Talgith groaned melodramatically, but Anna ignored him. I expect you to practice during the week, just as with your academy work. Your mentors will assist you, no doubt. Thank you, everyone. You've made a good start. And with that, we were dismissed. Back at the hall, I was terribly weary and in desperate need of a nap. So, I found Zella and convinced her to come snuggle with me in bed. After a fitful attempt at making out, I rolled over and, with her warm arm draped around me, I quickly fell asleep. What with class and Zella and Anna's Saturday lessons, as winter rolled to its inevitable end, I found myself with hardly any free time. But busy was good, I reckoned. I didn't have time to dwell on the bad stuff. Samhain, Odette. My fantasies about the Queen were relegated to late nights as I was falling asleep, more often than not completely exhausted. Excitement built in the hall towards the end of February, as the date of Zella's parents' promised royal function drew near. I couldn't help myself. I was desperate to see the Queen again, even if Zella was going to be there. I allowed myself to be towed to Min Tardiella's shop to be fitted for a new robe for the occasion. The sprightly tailor tutted when she took my measurements and checked them against the scribblings in her ledger from my earlier visit. Looks like they're feeding you at the hall. Well, Jesseth, you've grown since you were last here. Zella helped me choose my fabric, and I settled on a rather smart Niathi weave alpaca and silk blend in a golden coffee brown stripe. That, in the back of my mind, I hoped would look nice next to the Queen, who I presumed would be wearing the traditional royal blue. As it happened, I was right. Zella's parents had deemed it appropriate to invite all her classmates and their mentors to their party for the Queen and her advisor. This time, getting ready in the bathroom, I didn't even have to ask Charlie to borrow his coal. We assembled in the reception of the hall to walk to the gondolas that would take us up the hill to Zella's mansion. When she saw me, Zella gave me a hug and a quick kiss on the cheek. Oh, Jesseth, you look so handsome. Thank you for dressing up. Ouch. There was that sneaky twinge of guilt again. Zella wasn't to know it wasn't her I was dressing up for. I don't think we should tell my parents about us just yet. She confided in me as we walked to the bottom of the hill. I'll be stressed enough as it is. She giggled and I nodded in relief. Being introduced to the host as their daughter's boyfriend would have been way too awkward. We needed 2 cable cars to transport us all up the hill, to the very highest tiers of houses. I went in the first one with the girls and their mentors, and we waited in the stone pavilion that sheltered the disembarkation station. When everyone had got to the top of the hill, Zella led us down a street, under the golden cables, and across one bridge, stopping in front of a massive wrought-iron gate. Ah, Minnesella, is that you? Please come in. Your parents are waiting by the door. An elderly watchman opened the front gate for us and smiled warmly at Zella. Hi, Socrates. How are the grandkids? The watchman bobbed his head. Very well, thank you, Minna. Little Selkrana is starting school this year. That's nice. Is the Queen here yet? Oh, no, shouldn't be too far away. Go on, enjoy your evening. And he waved us through. If I had been impressed by Jeetz's mansion, this was something else altogether. I mean, I'm a lord's heir. I spent my childhood having the run of a country manor estate, so big houses don't often excite me, but the sheer opulence of Zella's house was pretty overwhelming. The courtyard was immaculately landscaped. A large water feature of tumbling rocks was lit from within by globes, and the pond surrounding it was filled with water lilies. Box hedges ringed an assortment of topiaries, and generous braziers lit the grand entrance to the mansion. Zella's parents welcomed us by the door. I recognized them from the New Year's Eve banquet. Zella introduced all of us by name, giving my full title when it got to be my turn. Oh, Jail's head, you say? And your father is the Lord? Oh, yes, I've met him. Nice man. Sal's mother said, distracted, glancing over my head at the gate. I really didn't mind this lack of attention. Meeting Sal's parents made me nervous, and I was probably as anxious as they were about the appearance of the Queen. Take your friends inside, dear. We have drinks and canapes in the drawing room. Inside the splendidly appointed entrance hall, Sala led us up a grand staircase to the drawing room. It really was a magnificent space, positioned right over the front of the house, and opening onto a balcony, warmed with more braziers, which afforded a breathtaking view of the city and the lake, the castle clearly visible, twinkling on its island. Inside, the polished marble floor was scattered with expensive silk rugs. Crystal sculptures sat on plinths recessed into the walls, and the rest of the wall space covered with works of art, at least 2 of which I could have sworn were Ashley's. A long table stretched almost the entire length of the room, set for a formal dinner, while the rest of the space was filled with luxurious couches. A grand piano nestled in the corner, a pianist playing gentle classical music to the guests, many of whom turned to look at us as we entered. Sala seemed a little flustered now that we were all here. Drinks anyone? She caught the eye of a servant with a tray of champagne flutes, and he came over, passing the glasses around. The other guests were a veritable who's who of little society. I picked out the lord and lady in conversation with Hanyash. There was something odd about the crowd, though, and it took me a minute to realize what it was. Every single one of them was human. Our mentors were the only Neathi in the room. We sipped our champagne and watched Talgoth scoff canapes from a passing tray. Sala shuffled uncomfortably. She had worn one of her human-style dresses for the evening, a big, rustly pink silk affair, and she looked kind of peculiar. I'd gotten used to seeing her in the entirely more sophisticated Neathi robes she had finally started wearing. There was a sudden hush, and the eyes of the crowd moved to the door. Even the pianist had stopped playing. Sala's father stepped forward as I turned around. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present our honoured guests for the evening, the Queen and her advisor. There was polite applause as Sala's parents moved to the side, and the Queen appeared, and the Queen stepped forward on the arm of her advisor. Holy little bit, she was gorgeous. She wore a Neathi-style robe, elegant in its simplicity that hugged her figure, the high collar accentuating her long neck. Her hair was bound black in a simple bun, her hair encircled with a delicate tiara, glinting with sapphires. Donnick and Samok, who hadn't seen her in person before, were staring with their mouths open, and I hoped I didn't look as obvious. I chanced to look at Sala, who had gone pale, almost green, envy clear in her features. Compared to Thayalik, she looked brassy and sort of horse-like, and her ridiculous pink gown gave her the appearance of a frivolous child. Damn it, that was totally the wrong thing to be thinking about my girlfriend. I couldn't help it. I was starting to worry that I had fallen madly in love with the Queen. As Sala's parents guided their guests of honour around the room, making introductions, us Bloodkin and our mentors were shunted off to the side. We didn't really mind. Most of the guests looked a bit pompous, and we consoled ourselves with the excellent champagne and tasty nibbles. Sala's siblings had appeared. Her sister was a girl of perhaps 16, and was a plumper, sweeter version of Sala. Her younger brother was a wide-eyed boy of about 10, his hair a halo of golden curls. Sala's mother beckoned her children over and presented them to the Queen. Seeing Sala next to her made my insides ache, but at least I didn't have to pretend to listen to Sala chatter nervously while I surreptitiously, followed Thayalik with my eyes. Eventually the Queen and Mer Sebastian made their way to our group. It could have been wishful thinking, but I was sure she flashed me a tiny smile as Sala took over the introductions. Lord Jesseth, a pleasure to see you again. Somehow Sala had left me until last. Whether on purpose or not, I didn't know. The pleasure's all mine, Your Majesty. She rewarded me with her enigmatic smile. And this is your beloved Charlie. Oh gosh, she was laughing at me. Charlie gave her best smile and bowed, extending his hand. Kajashlecha Vlashka of the VO Enclave, Your Majesty. But yes, I am Jessed's beloved Charlie. Bastard, I could have kicked him. Sally gave me a queer look, then shook her head, her golden curls tumbling. I think Mama's serving dinner soon. Shall we take our seats? Sala hurried the Queen away, and I exhaled heavily. I hadn't realised I'd been holding my breath. Thealik was seated at the seat of honour, the head of the table, while the hall crowd would lump together down the far end. Sala and Emma got to sit with their parents near the Queen, but her younger siblings had been consigned to sit down our end of the table. Exquisite, rich foods were served, and volumes of the best Jail's Head wine were poured. I was glad to be tucked in between Talgoth and Charlie. I couldn't even see Sala from where I sat. Opposite me, Dunkel had been latched onto by Sala's younger sister, who had announced that she was Niathi blood too, and proceeded to pester him with questions about the hall and the academy. From the number of times Dunkel had to remove his spectacles and wipe them, I guess he didn't mind the attentions of the pretty girl all that much. Different courses arrived, were consumed, and the plates cleared to make way for the next. Everyone enjoyed the wine, and the conversation at our end of the table grew sillier. Talgoth was poking fun at Letha about the obvious attractions of the Queen. Ugh, I hate being gay, she sighed a familiar lament. All the prettiest ones are straight. Yeah, better not let Coco hear you say that, laughed Jimmy from the other side of the table. What? Coco? Your hot waitress from the Rose? The Letha blushed. Yeah, we've been hanging out. Why didn't I know this? Talgoth was indignant. Hey Letha, next time you and Coco are hanging out, can I watch? Ugh, sod off, Geth. That's exactly why I didn't tell you. And it's not like we do anything anyway. We're not allowed to, both of us being Niathi blood and all. Oh, right, yeah. Waiting for our sex education classes, eh? Something like that. She muttered. I heard it's Aliak that takes him. Now it was Talgoth's turn to blush. No way. Yum. Can't wait. I bet Jazzeth can't wait either. Hey, Jazz. Jazz? What? I'd been trying to listen to the conversation down at the Queen's end of the table. With my Niathi blood hearing, I could make out quite a bit of it. Thealik herself wasn't saying much, just asking questions of those around her and letting them do all the talking. Pretty much like how she'd done with me. I bet you can't wait for our sex ed classes. Then you and Sal... Ow! I stomped on his foot under the table. We were sitting right across from her little sister for bitch's sake. Fucking hell, Geth. Keep it down, I muttered. Ouch. Fine. Be a dick. And he turned away in a huff. Charlie gave me an odd look. Just because you've had the lessons doesn't mean you have to do anything, Jazz. Yeah, I know that, I said grumpily, extremely uncomfortable with this line of conversation. But Charlie just grinned. Good. Just making sure. The servants finally cleared away the dessert dishes, and the party abandoned the table for the couches, where servants served more wine and sweet liqueured coffees. I had drunk maybe a little more than was good for me, and I desperately needed some fresh air. I ducked outside to the balcony and leaned on the stone railing, looking down at the city. I felt a presence at my side and turned, and there she was. Lord Jazzeth, did you enjoy your dinner? Yes. Thank you, Your Majesty. Good. She smiled that half-dimpled smile, then grew serious. I need you to do something for me. Me? I squeaked. Shit, get it together, man. I mean, of course. Anything you want, lady. Good. She moved closer and I could smell her. Vanilla and musk. She took one of my hands in hers, and I swear my knees wobbled at the touch of her smooth, cool fingers. I need to meet with someone, and I need you to arrange it, she said quietly. She removed her hands, and I fought the urge to grab them back before I realized that she had pressed something into my palm. I trust you will be discreet. I couldn't look away from those clear eyes, and I couldn't think of anything to say, so I just nodded. She laughed suddenly, as if I had said something funny, and took my arm, leading me back inside. We had best not disappoint our distinguished hosts, yes? Back inside, Stella caught my eye as the Queen drifted away, her face a mask of pure fury, but I didn't care. Thalie could trusted me with something. Me. Whatever Stella thought, she could shove it. It wasn't till I was safe in my room later that night that I pulled out and examined whatever the Queen had given me. It was a piece of paper, tightly folded. Inside was written a single word. Jeets. End of chapter 21.